ScreenFiles.com and review. What I'm reviewing today is Season 1 of Netflix Marvel's The Punisher. And The Punisher is a really interesting character because there have been at least 3 to 4 other versions in movies of this character, and it never quite seems to click. And it's hard to see why. Reason being, The Punisher is essentially a guy who shoots people. Criminals, to be sure, but that's his shtick. There's not a lot to him. I mean, there was a movie in 1994, 2004, 2014, and probably 1 or 2 others. Actually, Punisher Warzone, I believe, was in, I think that was 2014. In any case, he's a hard character to interpret, and it's really odd. I mean, he's essentially Paul Kersey from the original Death Wish, starring Charles Bronson. That's essentially The Punisher. But for whatever reason, the movies never seem to quite get the tone right. And this Netflix series starring Jon Bernthal is probably the closest to doing that. It's an amazingly brutal series at times. But the thing is, since it lasts 13 episodes, it's spread out some. So you're given more depth, more about what makes The Punisher The Punisher. And that's kind of important, because the movies have shown us anything that you can't do Punisher as a one-note character. The violence, which Americans love, is there, but you can't have 13 episodes of him just shooting people. There has to be more. And this movie on that front succeeds. There's the relationship with him and Micro, as well as some other characters, as well as with Karen Page, who was from Daredevil. So there are a lot of peripheral characters and storylines that also come to the fore that interconnect with what's going on with The Punisher, and it's very well done. But as I said, it's an intensely violent series, which is fitting for The Punisher, but it can be hard to watch at times. I mean, there were episodes of violence that had me wincing. And this is from someone that really enjoys The Walking Dead and horror in general. So violence isn't alien to me in television or movies. But the thing about what happens in The Punisher that makes it sometimes difficult to watch is that it's what I like to call real-world violence. What you often see in movies is what I like to call cartoon violence. For instance, anything in the Friday the 13th movies is cartoon violence. Reason being, it's not the way the body works, and it's just an interesting gore effect. It's not mimicking real violence. For instance, during the French Revolution, one method of killing people is with a guillotine. And there's a reason why it's as big as it is, and it fell with so much force as it did. Namely, it's hard to sever a person's head from their bodies. That doesn't mean it can't be done, because obviously it has. But it's not easy to do by any stretch. And the way these movies tend to have it happen, it's cartoony, it's silly. And I could go on for a whole list of ways people die in movies that literally makes no real world sense. So for me, that's cartoon violence. I find it interesting to watch, but I can separate myself from it because it's not realistic. What goes on in The Punisher, and in crime movies in general, like Scarface for instance, it's more of a real-world based violence, in which the things you do to people better mimic what happens if you shoot someone or you cut someone with a knife in real life. And that for me is hard to watch, because that's better reflecting, I should say, a reality. And The Punisher does a lot of that. And speaking of The Punisher, Jon Bernthal is excellent. It was interesting watching it. I actually started to think about Die Hard. And there are instances that he reminds me of Die Hard, of Bruce Willis in Die Hard, with better weapons training. I mean, he gets shot a lot. He's never killed, obviously, or you wouldn't have much of a series. But he gets shot a lot in this show. And he's so stoic and so focused on whatever he's doing. He doesn't brush it off, but he keeps going. He doesn't let virtually anything stop him. And it's pretty fascinating to watch. And you'll probably think of Die Hard as well. I know that's the first thing that came to my mind with, for instance, a scene with Bruce Willis walking over glass barefoot to accomplish some particular goal. Bernthal has the same feel to it. It's a surprisingly funny, at points, funny show as well, in that particularly the relationship between Micro and Frank Castle. Very interesting. It starts off very grating. They don't like each other. But as it progresses, a grudging respect for what each person does grows, and it's portrayed really well. It's probably one of the better Netflix series. All said and done, this is a very good series. For me, it ranks up there, not as good as the first Daredevil, but I would tie it with, I'd maybe put it second, or third. Jessica Jones was really good too. So, first season of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher. And you can maybe switch those around, whatever works for you. So, if you haven't seen The Punisher, on Netflix, give it a watch. It's engrossing, well acted, great television. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com. Peace.